Hello everyone, welcome to watch this program of Tai Ji Men 1219 case Redress 14th anniversary. We will keep discussing another truth about Tai Ji Men 4th case today. Tai Ji Men is an ancient empire of Qigong, martial arts, and self-cultivation. The central doctrine of Tai Ji Men is nurturing the positive energy from the universe, following the good example of sages from old times. Tai Ji Men Qigong Academy follows its essence to promote Chinese culture and purify the inner heart of people, and is respected and appreciated by all social circles. However, the Tai Ji Men false text has not been really redressed for 25 years, although the Supreme Court judged that Tai Ji Men was not guilty of fraud, tax evasion, or violations of tax codes on July 13, 2007. The National Taxation Bureau pretended to be deaf and dumb, and not only ignored the solidarity of 300 legislators, many experts and scholars, but also ignored the corrections of the Control Yuan, as well as the Supreme Court's judgment. In August 2020, the National Taxation Bureau even joined hands with the executive administrations to illegally auction off the predetermined place of the Tai Ji Men and nationalize it. We can help but ask, what's wrong with this country? Let's take a look at a video to understand what is the truth of so-called 228 incident of legal and taxation, alleged by experts and scholars.
A question of justice. The Tai Ji Men tax case in Taiwan. Taiwan is known as a beacon of democracy in a region plagued by dictators. Yet, in 2020, thousands took to the streets to protest serious violations of human rights on the island. They were members of Tai Ji Men, a Taiwanese spiritual movement based on esoteric Taoism. It promotes a holistic development of mind and body, rooted in the practice of Qigong, including teachings about martial arts and other traditional techniques. Thousands of Tai Ji Men members regularly bring culture to the world through events that have been praised by political authorities, both internationally and in Taiwan. Tai Ji Men Qigong Academy was founded in 1966 by Dr. Hong Daozi, who is also well known throughout the world for his promotion of world peace and dialogue between religions and cultures.
I could see Tai Ji Men having a very, very positive effect for Taiwanese society.
Dr. Hong's path as a spiritual teacher has not been easy. Religious liberty is something Taiwan has achieved through a bumpy road only. In 1996, largely for political reasons, the government cracked down on religious and spiritual movements, accused of supporting opposition political parties. The campaign also targeted Tai Ji Men, although it had not taken political sides. On December 19, 1996, Tai Ji Men facilities were raided, and Hong was arrested. He and his wife's assets, including private holdings not connected with Tai Ji Men, were frozen. These actions were carried out upon orders of Taipei Court Prosecutor Ho Guanren, who developed a personal vendetta against Hong and Tai Ji Men, and was later recognized by Taiwan's Control Yuan, the body entrusted with checking illegal activities by public officials. Prosecutor Ho promoted a self-help association of so-called victims of Tai Ji Men, which was found by the Taipei District Court to be a false organization whose leaders had created bogus claims. The court also found that there were no victims. On April 15, 1997, Prosecutor Ho indicted Hong, who was freed on bail on May 26th, his wife and 3 Tai Ji Men members for operating a fraudulent cult. Ho even accused Hong of raising goblins, something which is totally foreign to Tai Ji Men's practices. From his public statements, it looked like Prosecutor Ho was the one who really believed in goblins. Between April and June 1997, Prosecutor Ho wrote to state and local administrations ordering the dissolution of Tai Ji Men, and even that water and electricity supplies to Tai Ji Men facilities in Taipei be cut. the Ministry of the Interior and local governments later annulled these orders and declared them illegal, as no decision had yet been rendered against Hong. In fact, Prosecutor Hong's case eventually collapsed. On September 25, 2003, Dr. Hong and his co-defendants were acquitted of all charges by the Taipei District Court. On December 13, 2005, the High Court of Taipei confirmed on appeal the first-degree verdict favorable to Tai Ji Men. On July 13, 2007, the Criminal Division of the Supreme Court of Taiwan pronounced the final acquittal of Tai Ji Men defendants, declaring them innocent of all charges. Compensation for the wrongful detention was given to Hong and his co-defendants. However, a byproduct of Prosecutor Ho's ill-fated actions remained. Instigated by Prosecutor Ho, the National Tax Bureau accused Hong of tax evasion and issued tax bills for the years 1991 through 1996. What was the basis of these claims? As it happens in most spiritual movements, members of Tai Ji Men, who are called dizi, offer money as a gift to Hong, whom they recognize as their shifu, or master. These gifts are included in so-called red envelopes. The National Tax Bureau claimed that the content of the red envelopes should not be considered as a gift, but as a tuition fee members pay for receiving training in a so-called cram school, meaning a school where students engage in intensive study of a subject for a short period of time. Gifts are not taxable, while cram schools' tuition fees are. In Taiwan, there are many Qigong and martial arts organizations, and none has ever been taxed for gifts given to their masters. The Ministry of Education in Taiwan, which has direct regulatory authority over cram schools, declared 3 times, from 1997 through 2000, that Tai Ji Men is not a cram school. Tai Ji Men is indeed not a cram school. In 1999 and 2000, both Taiwan's finance minister and deputy finance minister publicly stated that since the Tai Ji Men tax prosecution derived from a criminal case, if Hong and his co-defendants will be acquitted in the criminal court, then the tax claims would be withdrawn as well. However, this did not happen. Hong and his co-defendants were acquitted of all criminal charges. Yet the National Tax Bureau continued to claim that the money in the red envelopes was a disguised cram school tuition fee and maintained the tax bills. Note that the 2007 Supreme Court decision that acquitted Hong and his co-defendants from all criminal charges explicitly stated that they were not guilty of tax evasion. In 2002, following instructions by the Ministry of Finances, the National Tax Bureau conducted a random survey among Tai Ji Men dizi to determine whether they regarded their contributions as gifts or tuition fees. All the 206 dizi who responded indicated that they considered their contributions as gifts. However, the Tax Bureau declared that only 9 respondents had clearly indicated that their contributions were gifts. The statement was false, but the Tax Bureau refused to release the answers to the survey. Based on the Bureau's false statement about the survey, the Ministry of Finances refused to rectify the tax bills against Hong and Tai Ji Men. They appealed to administrative courts, and Taiwan's Supreme Administrative Court ruled in favor of Tai Ji Men on August 6, 2009. On July 17, 2010, the manipulation of the survey was exposed at a public hearing in the Legislative Yuan, i.e. Taiwan's parliament. Later, the National Tax Bureau agreed that a new open survey should be carried out. This happened only in 2011, and results were disclosed in 2012, revealing that there had been 7,401 respondents, and all had answered that they regarded the content of the red envelopes as gifts. The National Tax Bureau had promised to be guided by the results of the survey, yet they reacted by proposing to consider 50% of the money received in the red envelopes as gifts and 50% as tuition fees. This was obviously not consistent with the unequivocal results of the survey. Tai Ji Men thus started another long journey through Taiwanese courts, supported by legislators and other public authorities, and by human rights organizations throughout the world. From this long and painful struggle, they emerged victorious. In 2018, the Supreme Administrative Court ruled that the content of the red envelopes should be treated as gifts rather than as tuition fees. The basis of the 20-year persecution of Tai Ji Men by the National Tax Bureau had finally been removed. Unfortunately, this was not the end of Tai Ji Men's tribulations. The National Tax Bureau had initially alleged tax evasion for 6 years, from 1991 to 1996. After the 2018 decision by the Supreme Administrative Court, it agreed to reduce the tax bills for the years 1991, 1993, 1994, 1995, and 1996 to zero. But based on the claim that for 1992, a decision had been rendered by the Supreme Administrative Court in 2006 and was final, it maintained the tax bill for 1992, including interest. Both the dizi and the public opinion in Taiwan understood that this was a political vendetta after Tai Ji Men had publicly proved the National Tax Bureau wrong. Clearly, what happened in 1992 was not different from what happened in the other years, and justice would have mandated to deal with it in the same way. Patently wrong decisions can always be revised if justice has to be served. The tax authorities treated Tai Ji Men as a cram school and taxed it accordingly. Since the finding of fact was incorrect, the application of law was wrong as well. Therefore, the incorrect court order should not be executed. For example, when you clearly know that a person is wrongfully convicted and sentenced to death, you should not execute the person. You should try to correct the mistake and uphold justice. If the person is killed as per the sentence, then he is unjustly killed by the government. Now that the tax authorities have admitted their mistakes and the criminal court has ordered state compensation, it is unjust for the government to auction the assets of Tai Ji Men's leader. If it does, that is theft of his property. No appeal by Taiwanese or international politicians, scholars, or human rights organizations stopped this vendetta. Not even courts of law were heard. On May 5th and July 23rd, 2020, Taipei High Administrative Court wrote twice to the National Tax Bureau of the Central Area, asking them to treat 1992 as the other years were treated. All this was to no avail. In August 2020, properties belonging to Hong were seized and auctioned, then confiscated after the auction was not successful, despite massive peaceful street protests in Taiwan and appeals by international NGOs. It may seem that this is a battle about money, but it isn't for Tai Ji Men. They spent in legal fees only, in 24 years of struggles, more than they would have paid had they settled with the National Tax Bureau. Insisting on conscience and justice, they did not settle. By settling, they would have admitted that they had been guilty of tax evasion, something that is both against their principles and factual truth. On the other hand, we can suspect that it really was about money for some bureaucrats. In cases of alleged tax evasion, they get a bonus on the tax bills, and some did get the bonus for the 1992 Tai Ji Men tax bill. It is not surprising that scholars and human rights activists from all over the world raised their voice in support of Tai Ji Men. Theirs is not a minor case hanging on technicalities. It has widespread implications, both for Taiwan and the world. Significantly, already in 2005, the Control Yuan had listed the Tai Ji Men case as one of the most important human rights incidents where it had to intervene. Taiwan is in a difficult moment in its history. Taiwan needs international friends, and it also benefits from its well-deserved public image of a country where, unlike in mainland China, human rights and freedom of belief are respected. The Tai Ji Men case is a relic of a bygone era, when religious liberty was still not fully respected in Taiwan. The petty tax vendetta against Tai Ji Men, however, raises doubts on whether the problems of the past have been fully overcome and is detrimental to Taiwan's international image. The fact that Tai Ji Men's properties were seized and auctioned on the eve of the establishment of Taiwan's National Human Rights Commission on August 1st, 2020, was an unfortunate coincidence, which contributed to the impression that the official rhetoric is at odds with the behavior of some rogue bureaucrats. The case has also international implications. It is a perpetual temptation for politicians and others in power to persecute religious and spiritual minorities that they, for whatever reason, do not like through the misuse of the tax system. The European Court of Human Rights is just one among several authorities that have ruled repeatedly that tax bills cannot be used to discriminate against religious and spiritual movements a government does not approve of.
The European Court of Human Rights stated in a ruling in 2011 in the case Association of Jehovah's Witnesses versus France that through its tax administration, France had unduly harassed a group that had been illegitimately put on a blacklist of so-called harmful cults. The court went to explain that monetary offers made by devotees to their spiritual leaders or organizations are obviously gifts. The court concluded that considering donations as taxable payments is a typical way that some governments use and misuse to discriminate against movements that they don't like. But this is illegal under international human rights law.
I think that it is as bad, if not worse, to allow an injustice to continue as it is to create the injustice in the first place. And that is what's happened here with Tai Ji Men.
Tai Ji Men are not fighting for themselves only. They raise a crucial question of justice, freedom of belief, and human rights. In this sense, we are all Tai Ji Men. The injustice perpetrated against them is injustice against all of us. Their victory will be our victory.
After watching this video, we can clearly understand that Tai Ji Men Qigong Academy was established in 1966. There has been no tax problem till now, just because of Prosecutor Hou Kuanren's illegal abuse of the power of prosecution in 1996. The fake tax bills from 1991 to 1996 were derived. People pay tax in accordance with the law, but does the government administer it in accordance with the law? The Tai Ji Men false case is called by scholars and experts as the 228 legal tax incident, with the most victimized and the longest term in the history of tax law. How many abusive officials illegally levy taxes for performance and act against their conscience for the sake of bonuses. It makes people as well as God very angry. Tai Ji Men tax case originated from Prosecutor Hou Kuanren. He treated the same income as fraudulent income on the one hand, and tuition fees on the other. These two crimes are in fact contradictory. The National Taxation Bureau should have waited for the court to confirm the nature of the income before it could impose a disposition based on the verdict. However, the National Taxation Bureau didn't wait for court's judgment and fully cooperated with the prosecutor in issuing illegal tax bills without authority. The so-called fraud or tax evasion income by the prosecutors actually was 5,000 times expansion from the account balance of only 610,000. Such a ridiculous indictment that had been used by the National Taxation Bureau as the only basis for taxation. It really makes no sense. And it had been found the National Taxation Bureau tried to cover mistakes on the administrative remedy procedure, including conceal the evidence, forge the documents, and other violations. It has also been investigated and issued 7 major violations by the Control Yuan. But the illegal taxation officials had never admitted their mistakes and covered themselves to let the illegal tax bill never ends. This seriously deprived the people's litigation rights. The judges of the administrative court had been also found that it is obvious the comprehensive tax in the tax bill of 1991 to 1995 are the same nature and facts. However, the Central District High Administrative Court made a divergent judgment on the tax bill in 1992 and only revoked 4 of them and let the 1992 tax bill alone. Then, the judges of the Supreme Administrative Court did not follow the principle of avoidance, resulting in the verdict in violation of the law. Tai Ji Men false case highlights many kinds of illegal tax issues. It just like a mirror reflects Taiwan's legal and taxation problem. It reflects the authoritarian legacy hidden in the judicial and the tax system. Therefore, the Tai Ji Men false case has attracted great attention of experts and scholars all over the world, and submit it to the UN Human Rights Council to condemn the Taiwan government. Italian scholar Dr. Massimo Introvigine, the founder of the Center for Studies on New Religions, the editor-in-chief of Bitter Winter, also pointed out Tai Ji Men false case is not a purely judicial or tax case. It's the prosecution of people's freedoms of thought and belief by national violence. Now, let's listen to what he says about this case.
We asked you and those following us by Zoom or YouTube to be here today for a very important human rights case. It's now several years I have spoken in various fora, including international human rights events and academic conferences about the Tai Ji Men case. And I'm always afraid that some misunderstanding may happen, because I fully understand it will be a logical reaction to say that's a very complicated Taiwanese tax law, so let's take it to Taiwanese lawyers and they should solve it. But that's a total misunderstanding. It is not, and it never was, a pure tax case. As we said, it's on 2 accounts a human rights case. First, it's a human rights case because the first human right is freedom of religion or belief. And this case started in 1996 when there was a massive denial of freedom of religion or belief in the post-authoritarian Taiwanese context. Whatever happened in subsequent years derives from this fundamental violation of freedom of religion and belief and continues to be, to this very day, a violation of freedom of religion or belief. As Willy Fautré said, it is also a violation of human rights because it's a case of administrative corruption. As the United Nations have recognized, corruption is a violation of human rights. It prevents citizens from enjoying their human rights. And so it's a serious problem of corruption. Even the US State Department, in their yearly human rights report, they praise Taiwan in many accounts, and rightly so, but they say Taiwan has a problem of bureaucratic corruption it should solve. And the Tai Ji Men case is a case where human rights of the Tai Ji Men community were violated through corruption. Is it a tax case? Is it a human rights case? But it's not an academic question, it's a very practical question. Because if it was a pure tax case, that's something to be solved by Taiwanese lawyers. Why bother to come to Washington, D.C. and discuss this case? Well, the answer is precisely because it's not primarily, and certainly it's not exclusively a tax case. It's a case of human rights. It is an established, recognized principle that it is the right and the duty of the international community to protect human rights. And it's needed that the international community takes an interest, as it is doing, and takes a stand in the violation of the Tai Ji Men human rights in Taiwan. Let me conclude with a personal remarks. I'm Italian, and in Italy we have this expression of a dialogue of deaf people. Two deaf people try to talk to each other, but they cannot have a dialogue. So in this case, we have, on the one hand, the Tai Ji Men dizi. Many Taiwanese scholars from leading universities, they are not dizi, but they have written about this case. And growingly, dozens of international scholars and human rights activists who have participated in conferences and seminars and webinars about the Tai Ji Men case, and they all say, look, it's a question of freedom of religion or belief, and it's a question of human rights. And on the other hand, we have the Taiwanese authorities, which said, sorry, but for the year 92, the statute of limitation has expired, so there is nothing we can do. But this is false, because it's an internationally recognized principle that when gross violations of human rights are acknowledged, the situation should always be rectified. And if there is no administrative remedy, there is always a political remedy. That we live in an historical moment when Taiwan needs a maximum of support from its international friends. But a precondition for this support to be effective is for Taiwan to put its own house in order and get rid of these ghosts of its authoritarian past, settle the scores of the authoritarian past, and solve the cases coming from the authoritarian past. And today, the biggest score to be settled, the one generating the most massive domestic and international protest, is the Tai Ji Men case. It is not because we are against Taiwan, it's the contrary. It's because we are friends of Taiwan and we want to protect Taiwan in a moment of need that we ask Taiwan, please get rid of this problem, which is damaging you in a crucial historical moment for you. Get rid of this problem, get rid of your bad past, walk in the path of democracy, and solve the Tai Ji Men case.
There is only one truth. The Tai Ji Men false case, which scholars call the 228 incident of legal and taxation, has been innocent and no tax owed from the beginning. The National Taxation Bureau should take the initiative to withdraw the mandatory enforcement in 1992, in accordance with the law, revoke the illegal taxation, and return the justice to Tai Ji Men to implement the spirit of transformation justice. We also call on President Tsai, using the highest wisdom to completely eradicate the authoritarian legacy, which hidden in the bureaucratic system, and persecute the people, redress all unjust tax cases, and several punish illegal officials. Only in this way is it worthwhile for the people to cast a sacred vote. At last, let's listen to the song What is the Truth About Tai Ji Men Case, hoping that the government will remember the lesson of the 228 incident and redress the Tai Ji Men false case as soon as possible. Thank you all.
The Tai Ji Men case, Taiwan Supreme Court found Tai Ji Men not guilty of tax evasion or any other charges. The National Tax Bureau and the Ministry of Finance reneged on their promise to revoke the tax bill. Illegally auctioned off the sacred land of Tai Ji Men. The land was illegally taken into state ownership. Where is the royal government officials' conscience? Where are justice and human rights? What is the truth about the Tai Ji Men case? Taiwan Supreme Court found Tai Ji Men not guilty of tax evasion or any other charges. The National Tax Bureau and the Ministry of Finance reneged on their promise to revoke the tax bill. The National Tax Bureau illegally auctioned off the sacred land of Tai Ji Men. The land was illegally taken into state ownership. Where is the royal government officials' conscience? Where are justice and human rights? The righteous people are united with conscience to defend justice, human rights, and peace. The righteous people are united with conscience to defend justice, human rights, and peace.
In Taiwan, we at Bitter Winter saw at work Taliban of the National Tax Bureau or Taliban of the Administrative Enforcement Agency, testify year-long persecution of a peaceful spiritual movement in a democratic country such as Taiwan. The Tai Ji Men case is internationally exemplary and important, and yet we plan to continue our campaign about it. Our voice will not be silenced until the voice of justice will speak and solve the case.